Okay, so we've got an election special, and first off I want to say that you might be disjointed from the whole government thing and think, oh well, my vote doesn't matter. Really it does, because that's why corrupt politicians think, oh, they've got guaranteed seats in all these areas and they claim £5,000 worth of taxpayers' money per day to go in, and often they, which I didn't know, have full-time paid jobs on the side, so rather a conflict of interest, because if you're paying them that much to be an MP, you would think that that should be their full-time job and they should have no other job. It's a conflict of interest to be doing other stuff. I mean, then you can influence whatever the hell you like for whatever the hell you want. It's on top of the whole scandal where they had second homes and then, you know, they paid that with taxpayers' money. Expensive second homes all to themselves, and then they decide to do the whole bedroom tax thing. It's rather a bit sickening how corrupt the whole system is, and of course you never get to vote in who goes to the MP, so it's all the old boys state, and oh yes, a jolly old handshake of my friend, and we'll put you in this guaranteed position, oh yes, because we know you and we like you and you'll support our corrupt cause and all this other bullshit. And on top of that, they're getting paid by people to influence change in the legislation for whatever companies they work for, or paying them on the side, and offshore tax havens and all this other bullshit that isn't really appropriate for someone that's meant to be in political power. And yes, you get to vote at the national elections for bloke A or bloke B from old state, you know, our jolly old handshakes. And that's kind of why it goes wrong. So rather than vote, you know, choose not to vote, go out and vote for someone who you think, like Green Party or Raving Monster Loony Party or Lone Behold, controversial other parties that people seem to have problems against, and get other people in seats rather than the corrupt, oh yes, we're the old boys and we've all voted ourselves in. And of course, that's why a lot of Conservatives have transferred over to UKIP, because it's not, oh, we support UKIP, it's more they're taking it over from the inside. So the jolly old boys still get their seats in government, still get to be all corrupt and all paid for, because they've transferred where their constituencies are going to vote them in. So they still get their several £1,000s per day income and still get to influence for their companies, and it's all behind the scenes, you know. So take care and pay attention to what's going on. It does make a difference if you vote, but only if you vote for people that matter, you know. Don't vote Conservatives or Labour and vote in the jolly old boys. Vote for something that might bring some change in some people that won't be corrupt and all this other scandal shit that keeps going on that they try to cover up because they're in government and they can cover it all up. And pension voice, yeah. Pension cuts to be avoided is David Cameron's major ply for the next election. Yet, just yesterday in the news it was saying that 90% is only what's guaranteed, and that's only up to £30,000 per year. But £30,000 per year, come on, that's a fair bit for a pension. And especially if you're getting paid all in one lump sum like they're trying to pay out. So imagine 30 years of that, or 35 years, that's £1 million in one lump sum. If you want more than that, then come on, you're pretty greedy for an old person. If you can't live off that for the rest of your life, I mean, just the interest alone from banks, and then there's the whole put it in this guaranteed saver bonds, you get loads of money from that and still live and be a happy old person. So, you know, if you're choosing to cash it out early, that's your own choice. I was going against the whole cash out early thing because obviously it's a big expenditure on taxes, but if they're cutting the amount that you actually get, obviously for poorer people, you need the guarantee, which is why I support guarantee. And yeah, 90% is a bit dodgy though. It should be topped up to 100 if you're lower, you know. Support the poorer people, give them a fair thing, but of course they're doing this for the whole election things. They don't ever care about younger people who want work, want homes. Of course, you're all treated like social justice policy and yeah, no, it's social injustice because they're completely misinterpreting the whole thing the EU have told them to do. And then there's the idiot who I had on Twitter who was like, "Oh, but the UK are part of the EU. We've been member states since the second thing. We weren't the initial member states, but we've been since '73 or something like that, and we are a member state. Okay, we don't have the euro because we chose against that because obviously with our own things like Poundland and all this other shit, it would have been quite bad for UK businesses to go over to the euro. And yeah, comparisons, we just want our own fiscal rates, which makes more sense. But we are EU member states. We do get policies from the EU. We are dictated to by the EU, so barrel your twats. That's why I had to block you on Twitter and all this other political bullshit that you kept spreading that was complete unresearched lies, and I just got fed up with it. I mean, and then you come up with that statement, "Oh, but we're not part of the EU." You're a fucking moron. Anyway, on top of that, NHS cuts. Yeah, I agree, maybe. Because if we go over to Europe and you go for health, then you'd have to have health insurance or you have to pay for yourself. So we shouldn't have health tourists coming over here just for our NHS. It should be purely for people who live in the UK or have lived in for significant time. So if you're coming from Europe, 4 years, 5 years, kind of like the whole thing with job seekers and all that, it should be as for worldwide, which is 4 years, rather than just, oh, anyone in Europe can claim it the instant they come over, and the rest of the world, like America or Australia or India or China or any other fiscally stable country, they have to wait 4 years to be able to claim benefits. So it doesn't encourage people to come over just to claim benefits, just to claim health, you know. It should be a fair system, which is why that I agree with that completely. So, yeah, but also it shouldn't be cut to main people, because if you cut it off for people of the UK, that's kind of, again, let's kill off the poor people. It's not really good, is it? I mean, that has tones of Hitler. Let's kill off the Jews. Let's kill off the poor people. No, we're in control of everything. We're in control of the media. We like putting things for the rich people, but the poor people, no, they can just go die in the streets. We don't care about them there. I mean, that is the dodgiest thing. We have a really, really dodgy government, and we have done for the last 20 or 30 years, because they've been getting away with this. And change needs to happen. You know, if not voting, then other means. So, just saying that. So, the EU's recommendations from 2013 were sustainable public finances, prioritise in reducing the deficit and the debts. Now, the way they've gone about this is more cut off all benefits, cut off housing insurance, cut off housing benefits, increase taxes if you've got tiny houses and one unused room, and just completely the wrong way of it, whilst avoiding taxing the rich people, taxing all these other people who are avoiding tax. Oh yeah, they can put money offshore abroad, no problem, and all these other tax havens, the people who can afford it, we don't care about that. No, let's just let them get away with this, because yes, it helps society if all the rich people prosper and all the medium people, they just get along, you know, sort of balance. The poor people have been still noted as being worse off. So all this bullshit about the economy recovering, it's always stated in the news, it's better for the rich people, the significantly rich people, and worse off for the people who actually need it. So, kind of not working, is it? In a sustainable way by 2015. Do you think that's a sustainable way? That the majority of the population, because it's about 10% of the population that's in the ultra rich. No, that's like 50%, I'd say. Well, if we go by the whole thing, which I'll come to later, of the risk of social exclusion, that's the severely poor. That's 27% of the UK population of working age, not retires, of working age, that are at risk of severe social exclusion because they can't afford the basic essentials. So, just think about that one. High public debt ratio. Yeah, they're addressing the things like Wonga, which was basically legitimised loan sharking, which increases the whole debt, but they're not really focusing on public debt, are they? But they've been told by the EU they have to reduce the high debt ratio. That can only be done if you help the poorer people. A durable correction of fiscal imbalances. Now, fiscal imbalances, wouldn't you say that poor people being worse off and rich people being better off just increases the fiscal imbalance? They want it to reduce the fiscal imbalance, balance it out, give poorer people a chance. So focus on chasing the rich people, you morons. Don't chase the poor people and screw them over. Oh, but if we kill them all off, yeah, that reduces the imbalance. But is that a morally sustainable way? I don't think so. You just care, you don't care, throw them out in the street, just throw them out, don't just put them in situations where they can't even claim any sort of benefits. Oh, yeah, but now they don't count as a statistic as being unemployed, they're just socially excluded. We don't care about that. Right, the next step was the housing market. Household debt is well above the EU average. So, well above the EU average, yet we were the ones being told that we have to pay back 1 billion to the EU because we're in such a prospering economy compared to the rest of the EU. So, if we're well above the EU average for household debt, how does that work out? That doesn't make sense, does it? It says there's severe housing shortages, yet we get the 250-odd thousand per year in immigration alone, so we need to build more houses for a tiny country. It's not going to work. There's only so many houses we can make unless we build high-rises everywhere and knock down all the houses and all this other stuff, or just build entire new towns and spread onto green belts. This is something that's going to be really difficult for the government to cover, short of stopping immigration by its source. Strengthen the rental market. Now, that could be taken in several ways. I don't know. Is that saying make it more expensive? Or make more houses available on rental? Make more things like that? Very, very difficult to judge what they mean by that. So, I don't know. Because if it goes more expensive, you're just going to end up with more people without homes being unable to rent anywhere. So, it doesn't really strengthen the rental market by doing that. So, make it more affordable. Make it more competitive, make more places available. Maybe that will strengthen it because, supply and demand. More strength in that way, more income coming in because if there's more places to rent out. Yeah. Adjusting the Help to Buy scheme at any time if it's not working out. So if you haven't looked at the Help to Buy scheme, basically you can give away 25% of your house to the government, which you can never own, even if you resell it, and it could be adjusted in any manner at any time. So maybe that helps you, maybe it doesn't. It's not going to help a lot of people because banks, due to this whole situation, won't lend even £40,000 to someone rich we have. This is a flat. It's a 3-bedroom flat, 100% ownership. It was £55,000. That works out at £206.57 to £244.94 with a 10% deposit per month. Per month. That is less than the £55 single housing benefits for one person. I have several pages, like one more house, £60,000, £225 to £267 per month. I had more, I've obviously thrown them away or sent them off somewhere. I do that for different things and trying to prove things to governments and institutions to try and get change. Anyway, a 3-bedroom house, 3-bedroom flats for that much. You could rent out the rooms, you could make 3 flats with that. That was 100% ownership. Yet you can't get a mortgage on that, even if you have the 10% deposit, even if you can earn the income per week. Your job seekers would cover that and leave you enough to live off. really, if you're fiscally sensible. But no, you're not allowed to do that unless you're earning a minimum of, it was somewhere around £23,000 per year just to get any sort of mortgage these days. That is ridiculous. I mean, even if you had 25% of the house covered with that, you still can't get it without earning £25,000 per year. So, no, it doesn't really help the people who need to get these sort of things, does it? I mean, that doesn't make sense. Because if you can afford it and you can afford repayments, then housing benefit would even cover that. The government could buy that and rent it out to people. No, it's going to go to some private rental landlord who will charge £100 per week to make a good profit. Not really help strengthen the rental market, or someone get a home who could actually use this and look for work and be productive to society. No, they want to screw it over and help the rich people get richer. So, high value properties. Taxes in higher value properties have not been adjusted since 1991, yet the lower housing value has. Lower value housing gets taxed more than higher value taxing in not only percentage but the value. So that really needs adjusting. The EU have told them that really needs adjusting as well. That's one of their recommendations. So again, they don't care, because the rich people, they want their rich homes. They don't want to pay too much tax, yet they're the ones who can afford to pay the tax the most. It doesn't make sense. Youth unemployment, over 2.5 times higher than the UK as a whole. Okay, in this area there are more women employed than men, but that's mainly because employers want ladies on the shop floors and don't really want to employ men because they're sole sexism shit that they think, oh, ladies encourage more customers and all this other crap rather than actual skilled people who can do the work. Yeah, maybe that's to help cover statistics. Oh, we're employing more women, but not in higher roles, which also needs addressing really, because they're just as capable of management and all the other roles as the men. But no, highly imbalanced, ridiculous situation. And increased training and basic skills, because they believe that youth doesn't have the basic skills these days. Yet when I was unemployed and they sent me on these stupid courses, I was like, well, why can't you find a job? You're doing these really easily. You've got all these basic skills. You can do maths, you can do English, you can read. What is wrong? It's that, well, there's no work. I'm looking for work. I keep applying for work. They want stupid 5 to 8 hour shifts per week. You can't live off that and pay your rent. And I knew that if I applied for that, I'd have lost my home because they had to cut off my housing benefits. And they ended up doing that anyway. So kind of defeats the purpose. But that's why I couldn't take it, because it wouldn't cover rent, it wouldn't cover bills, and you need somewhere that you can afford to pay the bills. But then there's the whole jobs where there are 48-hour working weeks, and then people sign out of them and do 60 hours a week. And if you actually reduce the working hour week to 35 in line with Europe, and then made sure that only management and roles that require to sign out of the working week and not regular jobs don't sign out of it, then you would double the amount of work available, sustainable full-time work with reasonable hours that can pay bills, even if one's a 35-hour and the other's a 20-hour, or something along those lines, a 30 and a 20. That's 2 jobs that can pay for homes and wages and bills and everything, and produce for society and pay tax and spend on things like leisure and entertainment that boosts the economy further and creates extra jobs. But the government don't want to hear that. I've told them and suggested that several times, and suggested it over the internet and suggested it to loads of other bodies, but the UK don't care about it. They want the stupid imbalanced society they have, where the rich work and don't have time off to spend on leisure activities and spend on the economy. They just want them to keep hoarding all the money themselves and work all the hours so they don't have time to do anything and spend on the economy and be productive and have a sustainable, balanced economy. No, they're happy for this imbalance in working and 27% of the stupid social excluded society. The EU have also said that they severely need to support low-income houses. Now, again, We had to repay 1 billion to the EU. Well, they wanted it. I don't think we actually did in the end. They got talked out of it. Whilst Germany and France collectively had a £1 billion rebate because our economy is so much better than all of theirs. Support to low-income households. Second highest percentage of low work intensity in the whole of the EU. That includes the poor countries. And we have the second highest low work intensity. In other words, we're the lowest worker intensity. We've got hardly any people working because there aren't jobs available. And people keep coming here to take the jobs and take that and take that. And they say, oh, but we're taking the jobs that no one else wants. There are people that would do them jobs, that want those jobs. But they just can't because the jobs are being taken. So, yeah, it kind of screws us over. And there's homes that have been taken that people need. And they just make all these bullshit excuses. And, oh, yes, the UK is so much better than our country. When it's not. We're poverty-stricken. We are listed on Europa, the EU governing body website, as being poverty-stricken and socially excluded. We are a country highly at risk of poverty. There's on the statistics, we're fairly level with these countries that claim, oh yeah, our country's so poor. We're just as poverty-stricken. And just because we have all the fat cats and rich people that distort the statistics, it doesn't change the fact that 27% of the working employable people aren't able to find work. It's not that they're choosing not to, because only 1.5% of the people who've ever, never held a job. Well, let's go down to the, where's the right thing? Jobs households are 17.1%, and only 1.5% of those households have never had a job. So only 1.5% of them are the people that claims as a whole of job seekers, people that don't want to look for work. So the majority of the people that don't have work, households that don't have work, they're looking for work. They've had work in the past. It's only 1.5% of those that have never had a job. It's not 1.5% of the whole population. It's only 1.5% of the jobless household. So, take of that what you will. There are people that want work and are looking for work, but just can't find it. Just can't find it that will pay for rent and pay for the bills and pay for the minimum that they need. So, socially excluded, yes. Social justice policies, no. It's in social justice, the way that the governments are doing it. It's not balanced. It's not fair. They're just saying, let's cut off everyone. Let's kill them all. That's fair, because they're not being protected in society, even though they want to be, but no. Yes. So, ensure the tax benefit system is fair. Do you think it's fair the way that it stands, with all the rich people getting less taxes and hiding the taxes offshore and all this other bullshit and scandals that keep coming up? And these are just the things that we find out. There's so much more that's going on that isn't discovered. Guaranteed. So, is the tax system fair? No. Because the poor people are being taxed the most. They're the ones being screwed over the most. The rich people that can afford it are given the most tax benefits, the most tax relief. They're being given tax cuts off their expensive things. They should be the ones being taxed the most, because they're the ones in the position at most to be socially beneficial to the poorer people. Think of it as charity. Do you pay for charity? Do you want to support charities? As a poorer person, I do support charities. Sandless and Children's Hearts Federation and cystic fibrosis. They're my 3 charities of choice, and I support them fully. And when I can afford income more, I will support them financially, but I do support them in other ways. And I even have the badge right here of one of them. I don't have the other badges available at the moment, but they're charities that I support. Obviously not as well known as others, and 1% of the people born, everyone born, have a congenital heart defect. So that really needs research and help, because if it wasn't for federations like that, 1% of the people born would die of heart problems every year. So yeah, heart problems are serious. should have more research put into them, but that's another point entirely. Anyway, allow more women to take up full-time work via increased childcare, it says, but just in general, not only take up full-time work, but get better positions and have fairer pay and everything else that isn't addressed by this. But also, I think that it should address young people, just in general. Young people should be offered more work because they're looking for work and they never get the chance, and there's just not work available for people who require it. Employment lower and close to France and Germany. Oh yeah, they claim that our employment is much better when it's lower than Germany and France, like I said, who have the whole rebate thing. So this is not judging by the unemployment figure, which is only based upon those on benefits, which obviously they cut off to spite the statistics. The employment figure is actually based on people working, but that's only based on those 20 to 64 who have worked at least 1 hour in the week that they did the survey. And the government knows when they're going to do the survey, and often they will throw job seekers on training courses, which again counts, so that matters. Anyone who's in 1 hour of work in that week, so they could pick a week where they know that there are going to be more people doing, say, a summer job. So yeah, if you've worked at least 1 hour, not sustainable full-time work over the entire year, you're counted as employed by these statistics. And there's just a huge gap between the employment statistics and the unemployment statistics, which is the socially excluded gap, where the government have cut everyone off. So, do you think that's a really fair system? No, it's not, is it? So we were ordered to repay 1 billion whilst they had the 1.1 billion rebates, yet they've got 2% higher employment than us. It's not a lot, but again, because we're basically close, does that make sense that our economy is so much better than theirs that we have to repay the EU 1 billion whilst they get a rebate? No, it does not. We should be on exactly the same level as them. And we're comparing it to the EU 64 average or 24 average. But no, that doesn't make sense again, because they're equally better off than the average than us, and that's skewed by the 50% terrible countries. And jobless households are 17.1%, where I've already mentioned. Again, they're looking for work. They're not people who have just gone, oh yeah, we're not going to work ever in our lives. Only 1.5% of them have never worked in their lives. The rest of the people are looking for work, and there's no guarantee that the 1.5% haven't been looking for work. They might live in such areas where there's absolutely no work available, because there's only so many shops open unless you become self-employed and run your own companies, and even then you're probably not financially fiscal enough to be able to pay for anything, because that is a very difficult challenge. And there are so many people that are younger now that have resorted to running their own jobs and doing whatever the hell they can to make money. And again, it's very difficult for them to be fiscally sustainable. They are in need of help. Raising incomes, the living wage. So, raising the minimum wage for lower people, raising the living allowance for minimum people. So, that's something that's recommended by the EU. So all this bullshit about, oh yes, well we're doing this to help out the poorer people, we'll raise it by this percent over the next 5 years. So it's really just an ordinary base incline raise over the whole thing, which is what happens every year anyway with minimum wage. No, it needs to be significantly raised by the EU mandate. Of course, this is by 2020, which is why they can get away with going, oh yes, we'll do it over the next 5 years. But it's not even going to be a significant raise. It's only going to be in line with inflation and in line with really basic things, because the cost of food and cost of living and everything is going to be raised. And it says a living wage. It needs to be a raised living allowance. It has to be sustainable in comparison. It has to be raised in comparison to the cost of living, so people can afford to live, because they currently cannot afford to live. A fairer society. I wrote that down, so I'm assuming that that is what it said, word for word. A fairer society for everyone. Fairer, not rich people benefiting, poor people getting screwed. EU mandates, it has to be a fairer society. Are they doing that? No. So, let's vote in someone who can do that, because they're not going to. Poverty rate and the social exclusion rate is 27%. That's over a quarter of the population that are socially excluded, and the government don't care and are doing nothing about it. If anything, they're raising the social exclusion rate. They're causing more people to be socially excluded. They're doing whatever they can. And they claim it's a social justice strategy because those who haven't worked for 3 or 4 years, they're not being productive society. So we're cutting them off entirely, and they're even cutting off people that have been doing it less. Because like I said, I was about 2 years, and they just illegally cut off my housing benefit, so I have no home, so I cannot claim, so I'm socially excluded. And then any attempt to make to talk to them about it, they're, oh, well, young people cannot afford their own place, so that is why we're doing this, and that is why we can only pay 55% shared housing rate to anyone under 35, because they cannot afford to live in their own flat under natural circumstances. That's because 2.5% higher time of unemployment for the young youth than in the older people. Yes, I'm stuttering a bit, but that's just because I'm angry about it. It's just not on, and you call that a fair society where anyone over 35, oh yes, will pay for whatever home they like and whatever rent they like, because people their age are more likely to have jobs. And does that make sense to you? Because this person's unemployed and they're older and the rest of their generation's more likely to have had work, they can afford to have more tax from society and have a home, and young people are forced to live off sofas and live at friends and live wherever the hell, or live on the streets, and they don't care. Youth, they don't provide for society, they're not the future. They haven't gone to university and studied to look for decent jobs and now can't find even the most basic of jobs. No, they're just scum of the earth and we don't care about them. That is what really pisses me off about this government. They don't care about youth because, oh no, the youth don't vote. No, they would never vote. So we'll help all the old people because they'll vote for us and keep our £5,000 per day seats nice and comfy and let us do whatever the hell scummy shit we want. The youth, they won't possibly speak out about this. They have no voice. They have no chance to do anything. Enhance efforts to support low-income households. Do you think this government are doing that? Do you really think they're doing that? Under everything you've heard, everything you've seen in society, everything I've proved? No. In their own statistics here, they're not doing that. They're not doing anything remotely to do with that. And if anything, their social justice policy is social injustice and contradictory to that whole requirement from Europa. Again, we are part of Europe. Proof everywhere on the Europa websites. Proof that we're just people who aren't morons know that we're part of the EU. Unemployment rate based only on job seekers. So yeah, when they're not paying job seekers, then they're off on training and all the other shit. They can claim because you're not unemployed now, you're in training. That doesn't count as unemployed. So when you're sent off on mandatory training, it's to help with the statistics in the weeks that they need it. And then you hear on the news, oh, unemployment has suddenly actually dropped by this percentage, and it's, yeah, they've sent them all on training, or they've cut them all off illegally, and all this other bullshit, because they know how to influence the statistics, because they know they don't count as statistics. So when they're running these statistics, they do all these stupid bullshit things to cover their asses and go, oh look, aren't we improving society? Aren't we improving the employment rates? When they're not improving the employment rate, they're reducing the job seekers rate, the benefit claimants rate, the people who need it, the disabled, the young people, the people who are looking for work and need homes. Would help society if it wasn't in such a screwed scumbag government way. And they just claim that it's just inhumane the way this government operates, and I don't know how they're getting away with it. And yeah, something severely needs to be done, and then they want to investigate the internet and block out what people can say because they don't want free speech, freedom of the media and all this other shit. They want to own everything and control everything, so control of the internet and all this other shit, so people can't speak out against them and they can get away with whatever bullshit they're still getting on with. And yeah, if only the phone tapping scandals were still around, so we could phone tap the MPs and see what the hell they're really getting up to, because they're just getting away with it, and they know they can get away with it because they're in control of the whole of the laws and all the governments and everything. And if they're all the old boys and they all vote on it, then there's nothing we can really do about it. Sure, there's devolved things and they want to increase devolution, and some of these things are devolved things, not only to the sub-countries like Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, but also to the local government, because again, housing benefits is a local government thing. So Labour, who own Birmingham Council, they're the ones in control of cutting off all the housing benefits legally and all this other bullshit in the area. So be careful what you're doing. Vote for someone, anyone. Don't just sit back at home. Vote for some insignificant party to get a seat if you want. Get them out of house. Get the corrupt people out. It's the only way you're going to make any sort of difference, unless you want to stand out and revolution. But I don't know if the whole country is ready for that. So they do say devolution, not revolution. So do we want revolution, or do we want a fair society? Which the EU tells us we have to have a fair society. I don't know what repercussions could happen, because the governments are doing anything but be a fair society, all in the name of cutting their debt and in its austerity. And that's why other countries in the EU are in revolution and rebelling against their governments and hating anti-austerity measures. We're too laid back in this country. We're too reserved. We don't stand up and fight against it. And that is why we're not getting big news stories about it. And other countries are, and they're standing up against it and standing up against immigration and standing up against all the unfair things that their governments are getting up to, all in the names of reducing the deficits. It's just not the right way to do it. There are ways to reduce the deficit that involves increasing taxing the rich and stopping the scummy behaviours that are going on there. So focus on that, not focus on killing the people that need it. Come on. I mean, think about it, government. Think about it at home if you're watching this. Really think about it. Don't just go, oh, I'll believe all the bullshit the media tells me. Because you need to use your own brain. Don't be a social media zombie. Think for yourself. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.